All right, Dan, we are the Varsity Voices, and we are here with our quick hits recap of the game 5 or week 5, right, of the season. And we've said this a couple of times. It's going by quick, isn't it?
It flies by. Yeah, for
Yeah.
everyone involved, it is. You look forward to it. All this practice, and boom, it rolls. It just marches on. So yeah, it's exciting. We've got some things starting to take shape. We've got some playoff races that are starting to happen. So it's fun to watch, and it was another good week of football.
It was a good week of football. One of the things that I was looking at, Dan, was really it was kind of a tale of two different types of games in the Chicago Catholic League this week. There were the blowouts, and then there were the close games. Right? It didn't seem like there was anything in between.
Right.
Yeah. So
right. Yeah, there was nothing that looked like that was a 27-17 victory. That was just kind of a normal football game. It was either, like you said, blowout or had some crazy finishes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's go through some of the games, Dan, and we'll give a quick recap for our listeners here as far as how the games ended up. And why don't we start with Nazareth versus Joliet Catholic, a game everybody was looking forward to seeing. The rematch from last year's state final game. But Nazareth wins this game, Dan, 16-13. Pretty low scoring, which I don't know if I predicted that, but I guess that says something about both the defenses here. But Naz now 4-1. They're going to play St. Rita next week, who's also 4-1. But Naz, their offense seemed to be able to move the ball. Logan Malachuk had another good day. Trenton Walker had an awesome day. Their wide receiver, and then on the defensive side of the ball, Dan, they were really, really tough. I mean, only giving up 13 points to Joliet Catholic. Now, Joliet Catholic was able to rush the ball. I think they had over 183 yards. Joliet Catholic's quarterback, Luke Similik, also had a really nice game. Larry Stringham, another good game. Their running back. But when it came down to it, Dan, the defense, when Naz needed it, stood up and kept Joliet Catholic out of the end zone. And ended up with a 16-13 win. So,
defensive game, Joe, and whenever we talk defense, we know what we're hinting at. I think it's time. It's time to do what? Bring him out.
Bring him out. There he is. It's our Zuko's Dog of the Week.
Yep, Dog of the Week. We're looking for defensive players, Joe, and that's just a quick reminder. Zuko's Dog of the Week is an award we give for defensive players who kind of looked above and beyond and played like Zuko. Like I want players to play like Zuko, the Ridgeback. Just relentless effort, great athleticism. And a real strong will for success. So, Joe, we've got a few people in the dog pound I want to go through before we get to our dog of the week. Some players that were definitely worth special mention and made it into the dog pound. First is going to be Jacob Bailina for St. Lawrence. He is a 2-time dog pound member, Joe.
Yeah,
he's our first 2-time dog pound member. So he is leading a defense at St. Lawrence. I'm going to talk about some underrated defenses, at least underrated by me. I won't say by anyone else, but
that's good
about the defenses in the conference. And I've talked about St. Rita a lot and Marist, and we've started to talk about Joliet Catholic's defense a little, but every week there are defenses that step up, and St. Lawrence has been great from week one, and Jacob Bailina leads that group at middle linebacker. Next, Joe, member of the Dog Pound, Liam Doyle for St. Ignatius. Safety back there. He is the leader of that group. He had three passes broken up this past weekend. Just another, kind of a shutdown performance on a really good offense at St. Viator. Liam Doyle leads that group. He's a playmaker, really steady influence for the Wolf Pack. Next member of our Dog Pound, I like big plays. Yeah, big defensive plays.
Yeah, always good.
Yep. Whether it's in a win or loss, we've got a couple in some losing efforts. But Jack Clevenger for Bennett, really cool pick six early in that game to make it 14-7. Mount Carmel. Bennett was in the game for the first half. But Jack Clevenger stepped up. Yeah, looked like something you see. I don't know. It was kind of the quintessential pick six in the flat. Clevenger steps in front of the receiver, takes it to the house for a touchdown. So Jack Clevenger, linebacker for Bennett in the Dog Pound. Next, Joe, we want to go to the game that you're talking about. So in a losing effort, Michael Brown, defensive back for Joliet Catholic. Another big play. He forces a fumble that gives Joliet Catholic the ball back and a chance to win. And, that's the type of thing that you have to have happen. You want big players to step up at big moments within the game.
In big games.
Big games, yeah.
Yep.
That's exactly what Michael Brown did. Gave them the ball back with a chance to win. So a worthy member of the Dog Pound. And, Joe, our winner, our Dog of the Week, we've got it from another defense, Joe, that I'll just say personally I've underrated or haven't talked enough about them defensively. We focus so much on their offense.
Yep.
It's Nazareth Academy. And Gabe Kaminsky, Joe, Dog of the Week. I mean, we talked about him a lot preseason. He was the best player I saw in the state finals last year, watching those games. He has moved. He has kind of squarely fit in at middle linebacker for Naz, moving from a defensive end. I'll still rush the passer on the edge, which makes perfect sense for Naz to do because he's such a good pass rusher. But, Joe, he dominated this game. I think you watched a little more than I did, but he's kind of a one-man wrecking crew when he wants to be, isn't he?
He is. And, it's almost like on the defensive side of the ball, he will he can take over a game, Dan. I mean, that's the feeling you get when you watch him play and the plays that he makes. I mean, maybe in some cases they're not like the flashiest plays in the world, but, he just he can be a one-man wrecking crew and he can control a game, from the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I've said since I think he was a freshman and I've watched him play, he's almost unblockable. He's got such a knack for making himself skinny. We call it on the defensive line when he has to and he's rushing the passer. He knows how to make himself skinny and get make an offensive lineman whiff. He knows how to physically take on blocks. I've seen him knock blockers completely off their feet, when he has to, and he's an incredibly sure tackler. So definitely, worthy of the Dog of the Week. So I want to congratulate Gabe Kaminsky, Nazareth Academy middle linebacker, as Zuko's Dog of the Week.
Woo! All right, congratulations, Gabe. This week's Zuko's Dog of the Week. All right, so Dan, let's move on to some of the other games. Who do you want to cover here?
I'll start with the most exciting game that I was covering and watching. Providence defeats St. Francis 27-25 in what was one of the weirder endings to a game that you'll ever see, Joe. So Providence gets on the winning side of a Hail Mary this week and comes away with the victory. For St. Francis, Joe, Brady Palmer was outstanding all game. He found Dario Milijovic for a go-ahead score late in the game, right? Providence gets the ball back, turns it over on downs to St. Francis with just over a minute to play. I think we commented that they could just take a knee. Well, it turns out there's some the stranger calls I've heard about. St. Francis gets a delay of game because of how they went about taking a knee. I don't quite understand it.
Never heard of that.
An official's going to have to talk to me about that and tell me exactly what the penalty is there, or maybe it was reported incorrectly. Anyway, it gives Providence the ball back with under 30 seconds to play and about half the field to go. And turns out sophomore A.J. Rayford found Jaden Mikulski in the corner of the end zone for what was arguably a catch, right? It's something we've talked about on all levels of football the past couple of years. What is a catch and what's not?
Right.
Slowed down replay looked like it was on the turf, but there is a human element here, and I know that coaches probably say, and I think Palmer, the St. Francis quarterback said it, after the game, that, hey, you've got to not be in that position. You've got to do things throughout the game. The game doesn't just come down to that. Yes, it's the biggest moment that everyone sees, but you can go back and look at opportunities that they had to do something, or make a difference in the game early on. So really tough loss for St. Francis at home, and a great win for Providence. Providence really needed it. So Providence is at Marist next week, Joe, and St. Francis, in one of the more anticipated games in the suburbs, is at IC. So
okay.
They need to bounce back. Both two really tough games for those teams, and some must wins in there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and so why don't we go to the one Saturday game we had this week, Dan, and that was Brother Rice St. Patrick. So Brother Rice, they get back in the win column after a couple of really tough losses, and they win pretty easily, Dan, 48-0 over St. Pat's this week. Now, St. Patrick, as we know, was really good defense. They were, only giving up an average of like 15 points per game. But now over the last two games, they've given up over 40 points. So Brother Rice, with this win now, they go to 2-3. As an award, they get to play Mount Carmel next week.
Awesome.
That'll be a good game for sure. St. Pat's, who's now 2-3 as well, they're home against Bennett, who's 4-1 and looking to punch their clock for the playoffs next week against St. Pat's. So that was the Saturday game, Dan.
All right. Well, we'll stick in that those two divisions then. So Mount Carmel. You mentioned Mount Carmel. They defeat Bennett 48-13, and kind of the same cast of characters. Jack Elliott did most of the damage with his feet. He ran for a couple scores and threw to Quentin Burrell for another. Daniel Taylor, Mount Carmel running back, also got in on the scoring action. Bennett, as I mentioned, got a score on a pick six from Jack Clevenger. And a touchdown pass from Ryan Kabaki to Luke Wilds. So it was kind of still a game at halftime. Mount Carmel extended the lead and kind of took control of this one in the second half. But we talked about Mount Carmel will be at Brother Rice for that big game next week, and Bennett will be at St. Pat's. So two good games to look at it this weekend.
Okay, all right, good. And why don't we go to the St. Viator St. Ignatius game. Ignatius wins this one 36-13 over St. Viator. Ignatius led again by quarterback Jack Wanzung. I think he had 86 yards rushing. Running back Robbie Connor, huge game, 131 yards rushing for him. Ignatius now at 3-2, and another highly anticipated game coming up this week will be Ignatius goes to Loyola and takes on Loyola Academy. St. Viator now 3-2 as well, and they face DePaul Prep next week. So two really good games there as well coming up, Dan.
Yeah, and speaking of Loyola, Joe, and DePaul Prep, Loyola defeated DePaul Prep 35-7. Yeah, last week in a game that we anticipated being a little closer. I think we're both going to look back on a pick that we didn't get right. We both kind of went out maybe on a limb a little bit and took DePaul Prep, but Loyola defeated them pretty handily. They took the lead early in this one and never really looked back. They led 21-0 at the half. DePaul had a second half score and a touchdown pass from Juju Rodriguez to Braden Peavy. Loyola looked in control, pretty much early on. DePaul had some mistakes that opened the door in the first half, where Loyola was able to extend that lead. So a game that we had hoped might be a little closer and could have been a statement game for DePaul. Ended up kind of being a statement game for Loyola. That they're still a force to be reckoned with. So the blue division gets really interesting, as you mentioned, with Loyola at St. Ignatius, and the blue division too gets into. The purple division interesting too with DePaul at St. Viator next week.
Okay, all right, good. Let's go to the St. Lawrence Leo game, Dan. So St. Lawrence wins over Leo 42-0, and we've got our first official playoff eligible team within the Chicago Catholic League, and that's St. Lawrence. With that win, they go to 5-0. Dan, I think we mentioned last week that maybe one of the more quiet 5-0s, right? But not anymore. They're squarely on everybody's radar now, and everybody's watching this team. But one of the things, Dan, is in their 5 games, they're only giving up an average of 6 points per game on defense. That's just amazing, isn't it?
They less than 100 yards rushing per game. Less than 200 yards total offense per game. It's a big time defense. It's going to be another one of those defenses that's undermentioned by the Varsity Voices, but that's changing because they are really making a name for themselves and just kind of picking up where they left off. I've said that several times this year. Yeah,
well, Leo, unfortunately for Leo, they moved to 0-5 after the loss here to St. Lawrence. Leo, possibly get back on track next week, Dan. They're a Saturday game against the Noble Academy. St. Lawrence is home against Fenwick next week. So another outstanding game coming up there as well.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one to watch, Joe. And staying in those crossover games, Montini defeated Marmion 55-19, and I feel like this was like one of those pressure bubbles that burst for Montini offensively, right? We've kind of been talking about them, as being more of a defense. They haven't really been able to get the offense on track. Well, Israel Abrams came through big time for them, threw 5 touchdowns in the first half, in what looks to be the answer at Montini's QB situation. C.J. Harkins was on the receiving end. 2 of those passes. You had the Castaldo, James, and Florio also had touchdown receptions for Montini, so that they opened up a big first half lead. Roy Magna threw a couple touchdowns for Marmion, one to a player that we talked about in the summer, Mateus Nice, who Marmion Coach Garrow was moving from center to tight end. So good to see him get on the scoreboard at tight end. Joe Montini, a big game this week. Montini hosts Carmel, so that'll be a fun one, a big one to watch with playoff implications. Marmion plays host to IC, so IC who needs a victory, and Marmion as well. So 2 backs against the wall games there.
Okay, all right. Another good game between Carmel and Marion Catholic last week or this past Friday. Carmel was able to put up 42 points on the Marion defense, which has been, as we've talked about, has been very good throughout the year. But Carmel wins this game 42-20. A lot of it on the arm of Trey Taylor. I think they had 402 total yards of passing in the game. One of the interests, and Trey Taylor had 2 touchdown passes in this game. both of those in the first half. One of the things that Marion was able to find some offense in this game, Dan. We've talked about them along with maybe some of the other teams really struggling on the offensive side of the ball, but they were able to run the ball in this game with over 125 yards rushing. So, maybe Marion has found something there on the offensive side of the ball, and that'll carry over into their upcoming games. So, but Marion's now 2-3 with this loss. They travel out to Marmion this coming week, Dan, to take on Marmion. Carmel moves to 3-2, and as you just mentioned, big game. They go to Montini this Friday for the Carmel Montini game.
Awesome, Joe. Well, the last game that I have for this week is Marist, a really good game. So, Joe, Marist defeats IC 34-26 in what was a really, really good football game. This looked like that football game you want to see, where there's scoring, there's good defensive plays, but the story of the game, John McAuliffe, running back for Marist, he scored 4 of his 5 touchdowns, Joe, in the second quarter. He was just outstanding all night and really a difference maker in this game. He had over 200 yards rushing, so he was outstanding. And whenever you have a running back have a game like that, you've also got to understand that the offensive line was I'm sure outstanding as well.
Yeah.
So for IC, Joe, Will Brick had a nice game, as well as Foley Calcagno. Foley's a two-way player who stars on both sides of the ball. Probably could be in the dog pound every week. He's that type of guy. Nate Brown also had 2 touchdown receptions for IC. And while Marist won the game, I felt like it was the best game I've seen IC play, and it looked like their difference makers were starting to make differences in the game. So
yeah,
and Marist, Joe, continues just to play in close game after close game after close game. So we'll see, because they have another close game team that seems to have that every week. They host Providence coming up this week, while IC hosts St. Francis in what might be one of the bigger games of the suburbs.
Okay. All right. So I think we've covered them all, right, Dan?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Good.
Did you learn anything? I wanted to talk quickly again about something that I've learned, watching these games. That's maybe not surprising, but definitely a factor. We talked about it on Friday night before we wrap here, Joe. And that's the mobile quarterback. It's unbelievable how big of a difference that's making, and not mobile in the way that like Jack Wanzung is mobile, and as part of their offense, a critical ball carrier in that offense. Mobile from a standpoint of scrambling to turn, what looks like losses or really bad plays into big first downs and touchdowns week after week after week. It makes it impossible on these defensive coordinators when there is a quarterback that you can do everything perfect for, and he can just scramble his way out. Some of these guys look like they have a hard time even being touched. Guys like Jack Elliott and Brady Palmer and I'm trying to think of who else jumps off, but Cooper Kmet. So
right,
they really, it's really jumps off the video when you watch these games just how important it is to have a mobile quarterback.
Yeah, and you and I have talked about this not just from the standpoint of the high school level, but also how things kind of start at the NFL level, then they work their way down to the college level, and then they finally get to the high school level, and you see it happening at all levels of football now, right? You still see the kind of stand in the pocket, throwing quarterback, but not nearly as much anymore. And everybody's moving to this more mobile quarterback, really opens up the offensive playbook. So you could see, at the high school level and some of the teams we're covering, The Chicago Catholic League is no different. They've found some really good quarterbacks who can play that way, Dan, and they're exciting to watch, aren't they?
Yeah, to me it feels like it's becoming a must-have. And I know that there's for a long time people have said take your best athlete and you can put him at quarterback. But boy, it seems to be at a different level. For me, at least this year, just watching, it is something where I think defensive coordinators have to work on scramble drills as a regular part of their defensive practice session, because that's just how big a part of the game it has become. And not these guys are not only good athletes where they're smart, they do the right thing, they know the right plays to make. I mean, they are fast. They are fast.
Really fast.
If you get behind them a step, they are gone, taking it to the house. So definitely, back in the day when we played, Joe.
You're going back.
Yeah. If our quarterback ran, he got. It was the biggest deal. He got pats on the back from everybody if he gained 6 yards and slid, out of bounds,
right?
Which our quarterback was apt to do, but
and it was.
And really pat himself on the back for it, by the way. So
yeah, and it was always called a scramble, right? If our quarterbacks ran back in the day, it was like, oh, they're scrambling to get out of trouble. That's not what these quarterbacks are doing, this time.
You do see a lot of scheme stuff, especially what looks like, I'll call it a QB draw or QB power, where they are literally taking the snap and the blocking's designed for the quarterback to carry the ball. So they've become big-time weapons.
Yeah, and the Chicago Catholic League has some good young quarterbacks that we're going to be able to watch over the next couple of years, Dan, like Trey Taylor at Carmel. You've got Israel Abrams now at Montini. Some young guys who are in that mold who are just going to develop further and further, going to be really exciting to watch.
Yeah, Rayford has made a difference at Providence, so there's another sophomore to keep your eye on. So some exciting stuff happening at that position.
All right, well, Dan, another great episode, if I do say so myself, right? and we've got more coming up this week. People will have our prognosticus episode coming up. With our predictions for the upcoming games this weekend. So make sure you tune in for that. And I don't know. Oh, you know what I forgot to do, Dan, is I forgot to give how we did on our predictions. Did you look and see how you did?
Do we do that today, or is that something can we?
We don't.
That gives you my answer, right?
Yes, I know we don't do it today. I just thought I'd bring it up.
Yeah. Do you know how we did?
No, I don't.
Yeah. I think we did okay, Joe.
I think we did okay too.
Yeah. I think.
But we will.
I think we had a good week.
We'll formalize it, Dan, in our next episode. Okay, we'll let everybody know before we do our next predictions. All right, so everybody, thanks for listening, and make sure you subscribe and you like us and you follow us and send us any comments that you might have as well. But you know where to get a hold of us. You can get a hold of us here on social media, YouTube. We're all over the place. So make sure you reach out, and if you've got any comments, leave those for us. But most of all, make sure you follow us and like and subscribe. All right. So thank you. Thanks for listening.